Welcome, everyone. This is the man who talks to machines, Dr. Thor here, and we're going to be entering into another zone of gnosis. Well, we're going through some very interesting times, and before I start into that, here is an authentic Hieronymus machine from the 1950s. It's hard to see it here. Beautiful old tech here. This is extremely rare. I'm not even sure there are any of these other than this one even available out there. This is instrument number 3. Here we go. Holoptic transmitter. This is history here for all those machine buffs out there. And of course, we're going to be looking in this, and we've already done that somewhat, and you can see that, of course, on All Access. Those are things that you have to support this organization to see. And of course, you should be subscribed. You should also be a Patreon member. And all good things you should be saying about me and this organization. So if you want to see all those great things, and we've looked in all the machines from the SE5 to the modern junk to the organized toxic demonic energies, all of those can be seen for those who are really want to know what's going on in the industry. Of course, very few people do. And of course, that's why you're never going to be successful. But so this is a fascinating machine, and you know, they're very simple, all of these machines. There's nothing special about our Hieronymus machine. All he did was take the 9 dials and put them into one big 0 to 100 dial, or usually 2. They're generally 2 dials, and at times he had up to 4 dials, 0 to 100. And of course, he had the usual input and outputs, as you can see from there. So quite fascinating. As I said, we'll get into these things and others. But let's get back to the topic of the day. You know, we are living in very interesting times, kind of another revitalization of looking into metaphysics and the supernormal, which has been suppressed pretty much starting with the Reagan Revolution in the late middle 80s that brought in the conservative Christians into the Republican Party. And of course, well, I should say they sold out thanks to Jerry Falwell, who brought all these people in to give more power to the Republican Party there. The problem with all that is that Christians used to be honest and didn't support any politicians, because basically, do you know any politician that lives by God's laws? Oops. So this is, of course, what happened, and they took words like psychic. Matter of fact, I knew a Christian who worked for me, and she didn't know how to spell psychic. That's how blocked they were, thinking that psychic somehow was an evil word. But well, we went from all these things, which is quite fascinating. And there was that great rebirth in the 90s and around 2000 where there was a lot of mostly technological rebirth. People were looking at free energies. They were getting into radionics. This is when everything kind of exploded, and it has maintained. Now, what is interesting is that in the 60s, people have no idea how common the actual study of all the alternative energies, the yogis, and everything else. I mean, there were many, I think there were hundreds of people studying Kundalini and yogic centers all over the country, as well as involved in just about everything. That's when lots of alternative research into the occult sciences, etc. And of course, in the late 80s, 90s, the rebirth of Wicca came out there, which there's a lot of interest in. So a lot of things happened. And of course, but people have no idea how. I mean, they had games in your regular store that were psychic based. Of course, the famous ESP game from Kreskin and many other ones right on the shelves right there that people were buying these, and you can still, they're still around. You can get these types of games out there, and there are many of them. So this was something that was in everybody was fascinated by ESP in general and psychic power. As I said, this came to kind of a hilt, and then it was demonized, which is usually what happens from these types of things when they try and suppress it. And they brought in all of the usual scumbuckets to foul the water of this. So it became to the fact that thanks to people like the unamazing Randy, who tricked scientists, he didn't really trick them. That story is another one that the scientists. But the problem is, scientists, instead of going into thinking, hey, people are trying to trick you, well, why would they possibly do that? They would never do that. They were very naive and to understand the level of evil that your unamazing Randys and organizations like that. Fortunately, he's pushing up grass somewhere. So the whole idea is that these organizations were not seeking truth. They were seeking to push a corporate agenda, to stop medical process, to stop alternative energies, anything that the corporate world. That was the real thing behind all of these skeptic societies, etc. And they're amazingly well funded in some way or another. I'd like to know where they really get their money from, but that's another issue in general. But this started to come later. And of course, there's nothing wrong with questioning. I do it all the time. The whole idea is that you have to have in mind that you are trying to find answers, that you're seeking truth. But you've already made up your mind that you have truth, and then so you're not open to do anything. And that's very typical of the corrupt, as we know, the corrupt scientific community. And we're not talking about some junior college corrupt professors. We're talking about the corrupt Harvard, Yale, MIT, etc. And this has all been documented. You can find it all on YouTube, where you will be able to find out how these people have been corrupted. It's been said, I don't know how true it is to verify, because it's hard to verify anything, but I don't doubt it, that basically the chemical companies or the food companies paid off Harvard to state that fats were bad for you and sugar was good, so they could push all their high profit carbohydrates, sugar infused products. So that's what they came out to do that. And of course, the entire thing out there, the entire reality out there and diets and everything else has radically changed. And we're still in this world of what is going on, because what we were told is not really true at all. And again, you were told by your dumbademia people, your teachers that filled your head with poop. And now we have what is coming after that. But what's happened recently, because we're going through this massive change, and I think people are just open to things now because of the fact that basically our whole society structure with the new election has changed. Our whole political makeup. We now know that America, which has always been, but now we've confirmed it, is completely alone. We don't have any allies at all. Canada itself is an enemy who has basically banned many of our products and is working against us. And of course, Mexico has always been an enemy. People forget the Spanish-American Wars and what went on there. And of course, the European cowards who refuse to do any of their own fighting and want to bring us into war. And they're going to try and bring us into nuclear war. You better believe they're going to pull back and let the Americans fight it if they sucker us in. Hopefully, Donald Trump, the new savior, will not fall for that trap. Certainly, anybody else would have to fight their wars for them. Europe has already got us fighting against the Russians, who saved everybody in 2 world wars and lost 30 million men in World War II. Now they've got us fighting with the Nazis against the Russians. How typical. But few people see it that way, and that's how the world goes. But there is this radical change. And because of these radical change, people are thinking differently. And they're more interested in. And of course, everybody is very, very sick. We all know that. The kids are sick. Nobody's physically fit. So people are looking at alternative things. And part of this is alternative health, etc., because regular health doesn't work too well. Plain and simple. So everybody's looking for a better way. And a lot of people are just looking to survive because of the failure of common medicine. So people are open to this and they're kind of forced to do it. And there are big movements now for it. But people have no idea. And I missed the 60s growing up and going through high school in the middle 70s when everything again was converting back after the naughty 60s. And there was, of course, the conservative people moved in to go against the hippy dippies. And the only thing that really survived from the 60s, of course, there is a lot there. There's a lot of opening up. All the things from yoga to everything else was all brought from this particular time, and metaphysics and the term psychic. But, some of this caught on. Of course, everybody caught on to yoga recently and is using it regardless of whether you're a radical Christian or not. Even they're using it because there is no replacement unless it's kneeling in front of a dead savior. And of course, those kind of nonsense. But so they don't really have anything. And we all know that all that stuff fails. When you do physical stuff like yoga, you get results to that. So people don't have to take anything to a high degree or see it as a religious thing. A lot of people, and this was even happening in the 80s and 90s, were looking at the fact that using yoga as kind of an exercise. So the whole idea is that the reality of all that stuff is just has to be understood. So we went through that, but it died off because it was suppressed. Jerry Falwell came in, pushed the Republicans in, and those nut jobs that we are out there that then declared everything to be satanic except what really was satanic, which is them. So, and of course, they support Satanists to this day and continue to support them to the highest degree on every level. And of course, Christians never fight anywhere. They're being massacred all over the world. And of course, Satanists are running almost everything in the United States, and they support it. They support it directly and indirectly. But without getting into all that stuff, we're going through these changes. But all of that has to be understood. And if you're living in a fantasy world, of course, that's the reality. Most people are. You don't want to face any of this. Oh, they're talking nicey stuff. So, I'm afraid that's not what the world is all about. And then people have to learn to change things. And of course, what's happening now, particularly with the telepathy tapes, I guess they're calling them, where they have taken nonverbal autistic people and pretty much proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that telepathy is 100% real. Of course, anybody who's got a brain has known that this is a reality and has been for thousands of years. This is how people of high level have always communicated. This is how extraterrestrials do everything. They don't grab things with their hands. They use their mind. And even Sony in the, I believe it was the late 60s, 70s, actually had building, because they had a very metaphysical chairman of the board at one particular time. He actually had switches that went on and off through the use of psychic power. So none of this is. And they've actually had, must be 40 years now, where they have actually had video games that you control with your mind by just thinking left, right, up, down, and it's able to then move the cursor or the there. So to think that any of this is in any way strange, right? And to think any of this is based in anything of that is evil is ridiculous. This is all part of human consciousness, which if you believe in the fantasy mythology of this literal taking of these ridiculous books, this is a God-given skill, and why not? I mean, all these religious books are filled with people who have super abilities. So super normal, as a lot of people tend to call this. So this is just people who develop things, just like people who develop skills in other areas. And there's no reason why you shouldn't use this as an advantage in this day and age. And this is opening up to a degree, but we have to understand that all this stuff, we have to be very careful of where it's going. And the problem is that you've got to remember that unless you're really looking at the world in the correct way, which means you're living in a society controlled by the demiurge, or basically an evil entity that screws everything up, that you really don't get it. And of course, there is no evolving and ascending and staying here. Life is all about, ascension is about escaping. That's what you're here for. It's just as simple as that. It's not complicated. And ascension is not difficult in terms of the physical practice. Ascension is easy in that aspect of it. What's difficult is you rejecting the common world so that you can go to the next level. You could say that even religions tend to do this. You reject the common sinful world so that you can ascend into heaven. So this isn't exactly mind-shattering. But let's talk about the new things. The big thing out here, of course, we have this verification. But for 150 years, they've been researching all this stuff. And beyond a shadow of a doubt, all of this stuff has been proven, just like Uri Geller was proven on film, showing him doing all of his psychic realities. Again, beyond a shadow of a doubt, it's on film. And if we're going to question all the film stuff and let the people who question us are the lowest level scum, and you're going to give them credit, like most people do, like all the coward parapsychologists out there who will not confront anybody, then the fact is that you are going to live in an illusion, and that illusion you will die with, and you'll get what you deserve for that, meaning you'll come back to the proverbial poop hole that this is. So what the other thing that we're going through, so we're going through all these changes where everybody is open up to things. So telepathy now, more and more people are accepting it who have any kind of, and of course there's nothing to accept, it's a proven fact. The only people that don't think it's a proven fact are those people that want to live in a delusion. You know, your typical people that are in power, that want to believe in their same nonsense to keep us down at the lowest bowel level of life. And of course, it keeps them in power. Your MITs, your etc., that teach fraudulent crimes against humanity, science, which never gets us anywhere because science is totally bottomed out. There's no place for them to go. But they want to tell you that they know everything and that they're just still trying to figure it out a little more. That's the new rap from people like Sean Carroll, etc., who feeds you with very liquid poo. So the whole idea is that these are the realities that are out there. So, and again, they're if even a tenth of the money that was put into the loser science that hasn't done anything, or into all this medical research that has proven absolutely nothing, if a tenth of that money, maybe 1/10 of 1%, was put into real research in this area, we would have meters and everything else. You can, and one of the things that I've listened to with the telepathy is they're saying that non-measurable. In whose book? So the scientists who can't measure anything, period, who've never really seen what an atom or molecule or anything else, because we really can't see these things, and we think they're like that. You know, basically we've got all that information from the ancient Greeks, which we go back 3,000, 5,000 years. We have to go back that far because the information has never changed. So, and that's what you get. So, you can get a PhD and labels you a retard. So the whole idea is that's the reality we're looking at. And of course, these people want to keep their jobs and keep their money coming and keep us in a delusional failure posture. So all of this is a reality that is proven now. And anybody that wants to argue that, you're just an idiot. So why bother with people like that? And they are delusional. They've been brainwashed, whether it's by a particular religious belief system or brainwashed by another religious belief system called dumbademia. So they're both brainwashed systems, and they both produce absolutely nothing. And that we know for a fact as well. So as we move into these areas, we have to look at what's going on. So when we get into the whole thing, we'll cover this whole thing with the psychic empowerments on another. But we're going to talk about here what's come out recently. Again, part of this disillusionment, people are open to everything. I've never seen so much stuff on UFOs. And it's UFOs, people. It's unidentified flying objects. If you want to use the term unidentified anomalies or whatever it is, that's an idiot. I'm not going to buy into what this society tells us as a new term. That's another way of moving you away from what is a known concept into what is an anomaly. Anomaly is something that's really technically not real. Anomaly basically means a fake impression. So using that term is just buying into their garbage. And you can find the little mouthpieces out there all over YouTube and other that want to use the UAP nonsense. There are many types of unidentified flying objects. They're Earth-based, they're extraterrestrial-based, and there are military-based. And what was the other one? I had about a list of, I think there were 4 of them. So the whole idea is that's what's out there, and they're unidentified flying objects, because that's what we're interested in, not an anomaly, which means nothing. It's a flying object. What is it? If we don't even clarify that it's a flying object, then we have a problem here. And of course, that's exactly what they want to do. Now, we've had all these people come out, and they've been doing it on and off for years. And again, what's happening here? And they've had a couple of new films come out, and now we've got people that are have got money behind them and everything else, and all of course, the soup gets to taste very stinky and bad, because when we really get down to it, the people that are involved in all of these are all ex or military people. They're all intelligence agency people, which have the lowest credibility of anybody. The military and intelligence industry are people that have 50 handcuffs on them and a giant butt plug in their mouth. They can't do anything, and they're under all these guidelines. And generally, you're not going to find people who are all that well connected. A few people out there right now are talking about this, and they claim they've gotten financier people together. And these were people that were contractors to the CIA that they hired to do all the dangerous stuff and got toxic and everything else from it. And they were the suckers involved, because they're not going to send their own people there, so they hire a contractor to pick up some irradiated whatever's out there. And I'm not really sure what these highly toxic UFOs are. But that's for another subject, because I could spend hours just talking about that. But we get into that. One of the things that we have out there is the Phenomenon. This is the new UFO movie out there, or documentary. And, these just can't be any trashier. And one of the problems we have right now with all these fields, whether it's remote viewing, UFOs, or even, I'm assuming, the psychic stuff, is we're getting all these old brainwashed people that are regurgitating the same information. Now, Phenomena is based, I believe, Jacques Vallée wrote a book called Phenomena. Now, Jacques Vallée has already come out and said that he doesn't believe there are any extraterrestrials. He believes they're just spirits or dimensional beings. Now, the problem is when we get into dimensional beings, we run into a serious problem here, which means everything. There are endless dimensions. We have to clarify this. Now, you can say something is coming from a dimension to travel or to manifest in a particular area, and then it manifests itself into a physical reality, into what would be classified as an extraterrestrial, which means some sort of biological entity from another planet. We have to define these things right off the bat. And of course, Jacques Vallée, who's been in the pocket of the military, funded by the military for the last 50 years, this old goofball who's never wrote anything of value. He's got all these books, which years ago I read one of them. I'm going to read them again and probably do some reports on it. But Jacques Vallée has never come up with anything. And as I said, he's in bed with the CIA, the government, and has been totally funded by them, as far as I understand, for the last 50 or 60 years. One of his books about all this stuff, that UFOs aren't real, which was picked up by Colonel Alexander, who also wrote a book, because he looked into UFOs. It's amazing how these people want to forget their work, but their books are out there, and he has stated without a doubt that there are no extraterrestrials. I mean, that's how much credibility Alexander has. So the whole idea, and of course they rationalize, well, they're not extraterrestrials from other planets. They're space beings from another dimension that pop out of the a can of syrup or something. So this is what they get down to. And of course, there's even been an argument over unidentified flying object as a terminology by the government, because there are no unidentified flying objects per the government. They know exactly what's up there. So when you ask them for unidentified flying object information, well, we don't have any of that. They don't exist. And of course, people misinterpret that, when what it really means is that they know what's going on. Now, we have to understand the problem with extraterrestrial contact in general is that the distances in space are mind-boggling. You're talking about light years, and something could be 100 light years away, 1,000, 1,000,000. And most of the stuff we see in space today, because light moves at a particular speed, so they claim, we are seeing things that probably aren't even there anymore, because it's been 500 years to get to us from deep space. So these are all the things people don't quite understand. But the bottom line is that this Phenomenon movie, which is based on his book, I believe. And what's interesting is that energy enhancement products, the people who are producing those so-called healing machines that they've got all over the world, which have dubious credibility, by the way. Really can't find anybody who's got any great results from it. A lot of people have tried it, and some have even got sick from it. We just don't know. It's like everything, you got to try it for yourself, but you're going to have to spend, I figured out, approximately $2,000 to $3,000 to test it, because things take a long time. You're not going to change a sick person by going in there and sitting in front of basically what's a multi-wave oscillator, a Lavorsky machine, and sit in front of it for a couple of hours, and you're going to be healed. It doesn't, these things take long periods of time, and they don't work. So for most people. Now, if it works for you, great. You got the time, you got the money. Well, I tell everybody try everything, because there really isn't much alternatives out there. This certainly is super easy. People go there, they even sleep overnight, all these things. Well, they're sleeping overnight and doing all this stuff because it takes so many hours to get results. So if you think you're going to get going in there and get something in 2 or 3 hours, and I've spoken to several people who have tried this, and most of it is, ho-hum. So nobody would got any major results. And of course, they didn't go for long periods, because if you don't feel something initially, you're not going to go back. So, which I think is unfair. On the other hand, you want to spend $3,000 on something that has very little credibility. But it's interesting is that this organization has their name come up after the title. So they have put money into this, is my interpretation. So they are the producer of this and put this together and spent that money. They certainly have a lot of money and are highly connected with everybody. That company, Energy and Enhancement Systems, is connected to all sorts of big shots, from Tony Robbins to the royal family to all sorts of military people, etc. This organization has been able to get into things. Apparently, they're getting results with some people. It's hard to say. All the people that are so-called credible, I don't give credibility to. Tony Robbins, I don't give Tony Robbins credibility. He's a businessman. I'm not sure how honest he is, period. Obviously, I don't know these people. That's my personal opinion. They're all in it. This promotes his organization as well. If he goes in and tells people, hey, try this, try that. Apparently, he has many systems, etc. But I don't know what any of that means. He's not sick. He didn't cure himself of anything. He's heightening his well-being. So the whole idea is that, what does all this mean? So Phenomenon and Jacques Vallée, I'm not a big fan of, period. He comes out and everything is this nebulous thing. It's the reason I rejected, after doing yoga practices at a very young age, the entire Indian philosophy, which is, we are nothing, we are people on the bottom of the fly of the universe. No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think people have a lot more power than they think they have, and maybe you think like that in India because you are so overwhelmed, but that's not the point. The point is you are important, and you do make a difference, and there's something really great about having a good ego to believe in something. And there's nothing negative about it. But of course, that's what the Eastern traditions will teach you, so nothing ever bothers you when you live in such a sewer as that. So the whole idea is that phenomenon, which, and again, here's the big problem. Jacques Vallée, as we'll talk also about Stephen Greer, these are a bunch of old men. And all they have is old information, just like you're going to hear from the remote viewers. All you hear is the same old stories. This documentary brings back the same old nonsense. They're talking about Roswell. They're talking about, you're talking about 40, 50 years ago. There's no new stuff. They have no good pictures. They have no pictures of extraterrestrials at all. They have the same old UFO pictures, whether they're a little better or clearer, some of them, than the past. These are all pictures that have been out there for years. And pictures of UFOs or flying crafts don't impress me. Who cares? Most of this can be tracked directly back to military. They're military unidentified flying objects. And that's why I like to use that terminology, particularly anything that's shaped like a triangle, etc. And all of these have been seen. Now, extraterrestrials that come here from light years away don't have to be seen if they don't want to be. They look like clouds. They look like other things. I think it's insulting to everybody to think that they can be seen if you want to. And that's a whole other issue. But the bottom line is that all of these information that we're getting is just old, repetitive trash. Do we need to hear about Roswell, which again is very controversial? And the problem is there wasn't very much photography and cameras then. I remember how difficult it was to take pictures even up into the 90s and 2000, when you still video cameras and so forth were still pretty expensive. I mean, it cost you a couple of grand to get a video camera. This started to come down in price, and of course they still were relatively bulky, but people still didn't get much. Now everybody's got a camera stuck in their eye and that they're carrying with them, and we still have no credible information. Phenomenon starts off of talking about the incident that was, I believe, in South Africa, where a ship landed at a school and chatted with the kiddies. I think they were looking for school lunch, but they chatted with the kiddies, and all the children say that this is real, etc. And I don't know if there's some teachers there or not, but I don't have much credibility for children either in terms of their, children believe in talking mouses and cartoons and manga. I mean, the kind of stuff that we've put in our children's heads gives them no credibility at all. And that's another, children would never lie. They did all sorts of research that children lie all the time. They even did a research where they brought a guy in, and all he did was sit in the back of the room there. And then they asked the children about that. Yeah, this guy came in and he hit my friend over here. This is the kind of stuff, because we allow that, and because they want their mind to be in something other than the kind of nonsense they're learning. So there is. So the point is to saying that children have some sort of validity here. Again, no pictures. And this, again, is 30, 40 years ago. Why is this? Where are the pictures? And I don't want pictures of crafts in space or the atmosphere. We have thousands of these, probably millions. That's not good enough. I want to see crafts that are parked on the ground, and I want to see extraterrestrials standing next to them, and I want to see pictures of crafts that are 10 feet from them. Plain and simple. Why don't we have any of this? Well, I'm very suspicious of all of this. And now where everybody has a camera stuck in his goog, we still don't have anything. And of course, there are things that are popping up here and there which are interesting. But as I said, we need a static picture of a landed craft with an extraterrestrial next to it, maybe even a close-up shot. What are they afraid of? I'm afraid the FBI, their picture is going to be on a post office wall. Most wanted alien, look for this dude. What are they afraid of? So the point is that they shouldn't be afraid of nothing. And if they're like some people say, like Courtney Brown, they want to come here, they want to talk to you, except we have zero proof. And their ships really look like drones. Drones? I mean, this is how crazy Courtney Brown is. So the whole idea is we go on and on with this kind of stuff, which is really appalling. And here's a guy who claims he talks to aliens all the time, goes on their ship, he's channeling information. He's got a whole crew of people that contact aliens telepathically. And none of them have ever seen an alien or a ship or anything else. So they're just getting these psychic messages from the atmosphere. I wonder if they're tuned into some old Bugs Bunny cartoons. So the whole idea is that this is what goes on. We have no proof of anything. And it's really appalling that we don't have any of this. And of course, Jacques Vallée has always been kind of a weirdo. And as I've already stated, he is 100% made man, made by the government. He's paid by the government. All his money comes from that. And he's in bed. And you can always find the same culprits. It's always Colonel John Alexander, Russell Targ, Hal Puthoff. These are the cast of characters. They were the same people who started the Art Bell Show. This is all documented on the book Seer by a remote viewer who talks about how the whole entire Art Bell Show was put together. Fascinating little book on remote viewing. That gives you the inside story of that. Of course, as a professional viewer, old Dr. Thor here, the man who talks to machines, knows all this because I do my research. Because I'm a professional researcher. I've been doing this for almost 50 years, author 35 books, etc. So, you may not have heard of me because of your personal ignorance, or because society only really publicizes all the losers and liars that are bought off. And since I'm not bought off, you don't hear about me. Of course, these are all the things you have to understand. The foremost radionic scalar expert on the planet, and have been for over 40 years. the only one to have a radionic retail store in the history of the planet. So the whole idea is all of this is facts that people just don't seem to understand. Well, this is the end of part 1. We'll pick up in part 2.